Have you ever wondered how A&R defines success today? Well, if you have, then you'll definitely want to watch a featured conversation with Preston Rodie, manager of A&R at legendary label Sire Records. We discuss how 360 deals have broadened the definition of success, as well as what determines staying with an artist long-term who hasn't quite had the success that they expected, and much, much more. Right now. Hi, this is Rich Ezra from MUBUTV, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage recording artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a career in the music industry. We're coming to you from Muse Expo in beautiful downtown Burbank, California, where we managed to catch up with Preston Rodie, the A&R manager for Sire Records. Preston, thank you so much for coming in and doing this.
Thanks for having me.
But you've been in A&R and the creative fields for about a decade, and I'm wondering, can you speak to the fact of what has changed in the A&R world since you came into it?
Well, things are changing, monthly now with streaming. It's been interesting to watch the evolution of, iTunes to now Spotify and Apple Music and these other streaming platforms. And frankly, listeners' attention spans, they're infatuated with a single for, a shorter window of time, and then they're on to the next. And so it's beckoning this question of how do we, really establish a creative narrative or a story for these artists and make meaningful arcs, career arcs. And so that's kind of been really the evolution, I feel like, is trying to get artists to see the big picture and create a long-term, idea of an artist rather than chasing these immediate singles that are being propped up by these streaming data that everybody seems to chase. I still think that there's great value in proper artist development. So,
you use that term artist development, and I'm curious, Preston, if you think that artist development today, that part of it is about the artist's personal narrative as an artist as well. Is that an important factor to the audience about where they come from, who they are, what their story is? Is that as much of an important factor as their music today?
Absolutely. And, I would argue that's been the case for, forever. Now it's just interesting because you have all these social media platforms, the transparency is there. And, these kids, these consumers, they're watching and consuming the artist in every way at all times, whether it's through Twitter or Instagram or their music. And they have become acutely aware. They have these spidey senses. They can sniff out when something is not genuine. And so I think that really having an honest and genuine, narrative that you're telling, a proposition, so to speak, a point of view that's unique and important. You have something to say, I think that's paramount, and then obviously the hit records, come. But I think that the fundamentals, the foundation has to be based on the artistry and what the artist has to tell the world, what they have to say.
What are the sources you use today to find talent? I mean, 10 years ago when you started in this, there were not as many. What are some of the sources that you're using in order to do your work?
Well, I mean, again, all the data is at your fingertips now, and you'd be foolish to ignore it.
Okay.
I would argue that a lot of people focus too much on the data. I think there's a nice cross-section. Data should be used to reinforce your instincts, not to be used as a substitute. But there's a wealth of information out on the internet about, things that are going on, whether it's on the streaming platforms, who's bubbling up, or who's getting Shazam tagged, in Kansas City or wherever. And those things are all valuable to know. And so I certainly look at those sorts of resources, but more so to reinforce an instinct that's already present. I obviously use a network of trusted ears and folks that, are working on developing artists and looking for a nice partner, a good situation. And it's kind of an amalgamation of all the above, finding things. They're never coming from the same place, whether it's an editorial, a blog post, or a publication, the press speaking about somebody, or catching somebody at a show that just blows me away. Or, maybe there is a data story that's happening and maybe it's, something that I love. Again, I would have to love it if it, I wouldn't sign something just based on the data, but there are plenty of people that do. So
let me ask you, you've laid out this very interesting kind of criteria of all of the factors that are available today. And from my point of view, it seems that, I guess the question I have is, does talent today need to be developed, or so-called developed, a little more in terms of attracting a label's attention in order to be signed? Does there need to be some story or something moving up before a label can go, yes, this is somebody we want to give serious interest in?
I mean, it certainly helps the cause. At the end of the day, if the company is investing money, significant money in most cases, even if the initial deal is small, there's an investment with marketing funds and radio and all these things, the recording funds, ultimately it does really add up. And so to be able to take in some bullet points of, hey, look, there's already some real action happening around this, or something that suggests that this will be successful and we'll see a return on this, that certainly helps the cause. But again, to go back to the development thing, I think that's imperative. And so we're kind of seeing this split where you're either getting in extremely early and doing a very small, reasonable deal and just being incredibly patient, or you're waiting until the artist and the manager or their insular team has kind of built this story and gotten some momentum around them. And then it's every label's interested and, the deals get outrageous, but it seems like more of a sure bet. It's kind of splitting into either or. There's not really as much middle ground anymore, I've noticed, which to me is kind of sad, because I do like to make sure that the artist has a clear and distinct vision of who they are before I get involved, because we can't create that vision for them. Our job is to enhance that vision, to augment it, give them resources and budget, but we can't create that vision for them. So it's imperative that they have that going into the deal. And sometimes, people are getting pushed into signing things so early that these artists haven't really discovered that vision yet. If that answers your question, I kind of
absolutely it does. And it brings up the factor of, you've talked about many aspects of what interests a label, especially when you laid out the fact that, some very real and significant money has to be put into a career to amplify all of these elements. I'm curious from your point of view, with major labels and independent labels, I might add, all doing 360 deals where they're involved in the full circumference of an artist's career, has that changed the parameters of what you look for in artists in A&R? Because you're now going to, there's many people who never have hits on the radio, but make significant money. We did an interview with Jason Flom at Expo a year ago, and he said, we're not getting Greta Van Fleet on the radio, but they're doing phenomenal live business. So he said the whole criteria has changed in terms of he went on faith. So how has that affected your decisions in terms of what you look for in A&R? Is there a broader palette?
Sure, I would absolutely think I would agree with that. And you don't necessarily need a radio hit, so to speak, to have a successful artist career. We're back into this stage now where streaming, there are plenty of artists who've had zero radio presence who still accumulate significant streams and revenue. And so to be closed-minded as to just fitting them in a box, confined to radio, I think is foolish. I do think that is a significant building block for an artist's career to have a presence at radio. But whether that's right out of the gate or years and albums down the road, that's each individual artist has a unique approach to that, and different approaches is right for different artists. So, but I certainly think that there's opportunities to grow an artist's career, whether it's streaming or touring. I believe that getting butts in seats, selling tickets, that's the most important thing. There are plenty of people who listen to a song passively on Spotify or hear a song on the radio and nod their head to it. But are they invested in the artist? Are they going to go buy a ticket and see that artist perform, buy merch, wait around before or after the show to meet the artist? Do they care? That to me is the most important thing, and that will spill over into these other avenues,
You know, as I'm listening to you, you're talking about the criteria of what you look for and what's important in terms of the development process. For you personally, you've been in this long enough, and you don't have to name names, but I'm sure you've had situations where you have listened, loved an artist's music in a situation, but for whatever reason, you've said, you know what, this is not for me. This situation, this artist is not for me. So given that, can you speak to the non-creative elements that you look for in talent that you're willing to get into business with?
Sure. The artist has to want it more than anybody else. That is the key fundamental. It's a very difficult lesson to learn, but it is the most important. There have been instances for myself, and I'm sure every A&R folks, you find an artist you love, but the artist is rather indifferent. You know, they have to want to take over the world. If they don't want to be selling out Madison Square Garden, then you have to know that getting into it, and you can't force them to get there because it just won't work out. So, you know, an artist with a real drive, that's the fundamental. You know, that's what's necessary. And obviously the music is important as well, but the non-creative component, they have to be willing to fight for it, to lay on the tracks for it. You know, they're doing radio promo, they're doing all sorts of things every day, all day. You know, they got to be ready to go to work. And if they're not, it's doomed from the start, you know.
Okay. So a solid drive.
Yeah.
Absolutely crucial. I mean, you know, beyond the music, a solid drive and a work ethic. You know, Andy Gould, who managed Rob Zombie for many years, used to say, one thing I look for is that if I want it more than they do, run. Exactly. This is not for you. Because he said it'll never work. You're not the artist. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if you want to work harder than they do. You can't deliver on that. Talk to me about, in your criteria in A&R, in your job, how important is an artist team when you're deciding to get involved with them or not get involved? Does that factor into your decision process at all?
Absolutely. I mean, you're going to be working with these people, you know, oftentimes more than the artists themselves. You're working with their team, and they have to be someone that, you know, you want to fight for the artist, but you got to want to fight for the team too. And they've got to be great partners as well. But that doesn't mean they have to be some heavy hitter, Power 100 manager that, you know, can pick up the phone and get a hold of whoever. It's got to be somebody who is extraordinarily passionate about the music, and they're willing to fight and die for the music as well, you know. And, you know, if they have some resources to throw in the mix as well, that's obviously very helpful. But, you know, it's a team effort, you know, whether it's the label or the, you know, the booking agent or the manager or the attorney. Everybody's got to be willing to fight for the artist, and that's how it works. So
okay, all right. Today, one of the, I guess you could call it criticisms, and I'm sure you've heard it in your time in the business, that's thrown at labels, perhaps, you know, all labels, big and small, is the fact that, you know, they don't stay with an artist long enough. So my question to you as an A&R executive is, you sign an artist that the company, everybody's passionate and loves, and it doesn't quite deliver on the first record, or, you know, doesn't live up to the expectations that you guys had for it. What determines continuing with that artist or saying, you know what, this isn't the right situation. We don't feel comfortable moving forward. And I'm sure you've been involved in both. So can you talk to what factors go into that?
I mean, it varies. I like to you want to see growth. You know, you don't have to have stratospheric success off the first album to see that there's an appetite for the music and to see that there's growth and something happening. You know, ideally you see, you know, a few steps forward with every release and every cycle or campaign. There's some sort of movement, a trajectory happening. That is the key to me. But, you know, even if it's 5 steps forward and 2 steps back and then another 3 steps forward, you know, some sort of forward movement, that is a necessity. If it's kind of dropping off or people are getting frustrated, again, the team, you know, has to be willing to be in it for the long haul. And they can't be assuming that everything happens overnight, because more often than not, as you know, it doesn't. It's a long process, and just having that in your mind and being cognizant of the work that's necessary, as long as there's forward movement, you know, that's what I'm looking for.
Okay. You've been an A&R executive for a long time. In your view, what are the qualities in your mind that make a great A&R executive?
drive again, an ear, but that is developed. I think that you can fine tune your ear. Passion. I think that's the most important thing. I mean, I guess that could go hand in hand with drive, but like, it's not an easy job. It's can appear glamorous, but the moments of glamour are far outweighed by the moments that are not so glamorous and are very difficult, and often thankless. I'm not trying to tell you to run from it, but it's a tough job. And, you really have to be so incredibly passionate about music that you can't picture yourself doing anything else in order to persevere and really, stick around. That's my view on it. Obviously, having great ear is important, but that comes with time, So.
And refinement.
Yeah,
exactly. For artists, bands, musicians who are pursuing a career professionally in music, what would be your strongest pieces of advice for what they should be doing to help develop themselves?
Focus on the music. I know that is the most cliche, basic answer, but look, I mean, obviously the team is important, like we discussed. Find a team that is wholly passionate about you and, again, willing to go to bat for you, and let them take care of everything else and focus on your art. And art doesn't have to be confined to music. You're selling a whole story. Again, to go back to the narrative thing, you're selling your artistry as a whole, whether that's inclusive of visual aesthetics and visuals, video, merch. There's a whole, I hate to use the term brand, but you're creating a story for your artistry. And I think you really need to focus on that. And obviously the music component is the largest component of that. And then the business part, that comes, and you just have to have the right team to help you put that together. Don't worry about the record label thing. People are, how do I get signed? How do I get signed? You get signed when you're not focusing on it. Focus on your craft and become an expert at your craft. Start small, find your fans and super serve your fans and grow that fan base, cultivate a fan base, be the biggest artist of your city, and then of your region and your state. And, next thing you know, everyone's going to be calling from all the labels and all the, everyone's going to want to partner with you because you'll have displayed your drive and that your artistry is something that is attracting people. So I would say, just focus on the art.
Wow. Some really valuable insights from Preston there. So, insiders, here's the question of the day. What parts of Preston's interview really resonated with you? Was it the evolution that A&R has gone through over the last decade? Or was it how 360 deals have broadened the scope of how you define success today for a recording artist? Or was it how labels determined to stay with an artist whose debut didn't quite break through? Or was it something else entirely? We'd love to hear from you and connect in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to MUBUTV for more information, educate, empower, and engage your music career. In addition, we recently put together a free guide on the best strategies to use when connecting with A&R executives. This is extremely important before beginning your journey. So, if you're interested in receiving it, we included a link into that description, which is right below. Totally free, and it goes through all of the top do's and don'ts before you even think about reaching out to A&R. Questions such as asking yourself, is my music 100% ready to go? Making sure you don't include attachments of any kind in your email. Only direct links to either your Spotify or SoundCloud accounts, and much, much more. This is an incredibly crucial guide to learning the art and etiquette of connecting with the A&R community. So if you're interested in receiving it, we'll link to it in the description below. You can also check out a summary of this episode, everything we talked about, in the description below as well. And if you enjoyed this video, we'd really love it if you hit the like button and let us know what other kinds of videos and types of content you would like to see on our channel. Hit us up in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.